Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Julie and my channel is about textile things I make, generally sewing, knitting, patchwork, crochet. Today I've also got a little bit of bead making, which I'll talk about a bit later. But you're very welcome and it's good to have your company, and let's crack on. This is episode 28. And I'm going to talk about what I'm wearing first of all, which is one of my go-to summer makes. I've made perhaps 4 of these as tops and at least 1 as a dress. Right, so it's the Canva set by Merchant and Mills. And it comes in, that's the back of the pattern. It comes as a dress and a top. And it's a really nice make. Particularly, I did make this in 2021. So my recall is going to be perfect. I've looked up in my sewing journal and I haven't put a lot of notes, but was it June 2021, and I made a size 12. But what I remember is the fabric, the neckline is really an interesting way of creating the neckline. I can't quite describe it now because it was quite a few years ago, but I remember making it think, oh gosh, that works out really neatly. It's a slip over style, so there's no zips or buttons, and it's a really comfy wear. To show you the pattern again. So it's not too baggy. It has darts at the top, and that's the shape of it. It is designed for woven fabrics, suggested linen blends, denim, cotton, fine wool or needle cord. But I would really recommend this pattern. I think it's a really easy make. Oh yeah, it does say skill level beginner. So it's a really nice straightforward make, and as I said, the way the neckline is created is very interesting, and I remember at the time thinking, oh, that's really neat the way it works out. The fabric came from one of my trips to Abercorn, and it is a lightweight linen. This is being washed and worn, and it's lasted really well, I think. And as I said, it is one of my go-to summer patterns. I don't think there is anything else to say. I will put a photograph in of me standing up wearing it rather than messing about here. Not outside, because the weather has turned and it is quite windy and showery here in Scotland. I'm looking out of the little Velux window. Not raining at the moment, but there has been lots of rain, which is, I suppose, welcome for the gardens and the farmers. So that's what I'm wearing, and I'm going to move on to my finished items. First of all, I'm going to talk about this overnight bag, which I made this week. I'll show you the pattern and then talk about the bag. So the pattern, I did have it ready. The pattern is Kwik Sew, and it's this version I made of an overnight bag. I will put the patterns in the description below. there's a few other designs on there which I haven't made. I must have bought this 2-3 years ago and didn't complete. Well, I hadn't even cut out the pattern. So I can only talk about the overnight bag. But the other patterns look quite interesting. This is described as a boho bag. That looks quite nice. So I might consider making some of the others at another time, not on my list at the moment. So let's talk about the bag. The fabric I bought on eBay quite a few years ago. Let's say 4 years ago. And it's a cotton. I suppose it's a lightweight curtain style fabric. I'm just going to move my coffee so I don't spill that. I suppose it's a lightweight curtain fabric. And what I did, the bag itself isn't lined. And I do have some wadding in here to show for the video. So, you know, I've bulked it out with some bits of wadding. And the fabric suggestions are, let's have a look, medium to heavyweight woven fabric, cotton types, denim, decorative fabrics, canvas, pre-quilted fabrics. So what I did, I took this piece of cotton, lightweight curtain fabric. I have a little bit of this left, not loads, after making the bag. And I actually quilted it with polyester wadding with the aim of giving the bag a bit more structure. That took the longest, the quilting. It's sort of squared quilting using my walking foot on my ordinary domestic machine. That's the only quilting I do, either hand or ordinary domestic machine. So that took the longest, and I lined it with some, I suppose it's sheeting or pillowcase weight polyester cotton, I suppose, which somebody gave me fairly recently, and it was in my stash, and I didn't have enough, so I sort of made a patchwork. I will put some photos in of the process of making the bag. I did try and take some photographs as I went along. So I pre-quilted a piece because the pattern doesn't add a lining, and I wanted it a little bit more robust. This fabric, the pink on the top, I don't think would be substantial enough. The handles are again made out of the fabric, and there are tabs at the end which are supposed to line up with the zip. That one does. That one isn't as good, but it does sort of line up with the zip. The zip is a chunkier weight one. If I can try and show the zip, it's a chunkier weight pink zip, which I bought again quite a few years ago from Abercorn, my go-to when we lived in North Wales. And they have, I think, 2 sale days a year, or sort of special sales, where they have a little, well, they did have when we lived in North Wales. I used to go to the Rill branch. They have like a little outbuilding, and one of the things they sell are bags of, they're not mystery bags because they didn't clear cellophane, but they might have zips or buttons, and I think they were either £1 or £3 a bag. This is going back 3-4 years ago. So, you know, I do have quite a lot of zips from buying them at the Abercorn sales. So I had a zip. I think it called for an 18-inch zip, and this was 18-20 inches, so it was spot on. And it does have a little P on the zip, so I don't know where that would have been destined for. I suppose, I don't know much about it, but I suppose Abercorn sell dead stock things, I'm not sure. But there's a P on the end of the zip pull. And what else is there to say? I'm going to take the wadding out to show you. So it's just bags of wadding destined for some other projects. And once you take the wadding out, the bag is quite floppy. But I suppose an advantage of that is you can then tuck it away when it's not in use. But I think you'd get quite a lot of clothes and a towel, toilet bag for an overnight stay somewhere. So I am pleased with that. I thought it would be a bit more robust or sturdy with the wadding, but it is floppy, but that's fine. I don't tend to fly. I don't go on aeroplanes. So my travelling is in the UK, sometimes on the train, usually in the car. So that's ideal for me. I wouldn't say it's like a aeroplane type bag, but it is useful, excuse the rustling, for little overnight stays in the UK. So that's one finished item. I'm just going to put it back there and check there isn't anything else I need to say about the bag. So that's my first finished item. Tick that off and tick off what am I? My next finished item is my Sashiko panel, and this is the last of the three, which I finished perhaps yesterday, just because I've been doing other things. But it's got sort of quite a lot of blank space in the middle, which is quite different to the other two. The other two I've made are totally full of stitches, but I wanted this beige mustardy colour to contrast with the other two. So I'm pleased with it. It's finished. I ordered the frame online and it came really quickly. So I will put the company, I think it was via Etsy. Oh, I can't remember how much, 13, 14 pounds. But, you know, it's fine. I looked everywhere. Well, I looked in a lot of shops for a square frame of this dimension. I couldn't find one. So hence I went online and I ordered it and it was here within a couple of days. So I was able to frame it up yesterday using double-sided tape to attach the fabric to the board inside the frame. And my partner then, we've put up the three in the kitchen. And again, I'll put a photograph. I took a photograph of all three in line in the kitchen above a shelf, which was rescued from the tide line. We live near the coast and it's a beach find shelf. I think it's quite a long shelf, but Andrew was very handy and we bought some nice brackets off somebody online. So it's up and it's got crockery on there, high ceilinged kitchen, and these three panels are above it. So I'm pleased with that. So that's my Sashiko panels done for a while. I don't have the pack on the table with the instructions, but it'll be on my other videos. I bought this one online And I think I bought this yarn online, Sashiko yarn. The other two I bought from Susan Briscoe at the Glasgow Quilt and Creative Craft Show in March. It's nice to see what you're buying, I think, but I had to buy this one online because I only bought two at the show. So that's my Sashiko finished item. I think that's it on that one. So I'm pleased with that, and that's my Sashiko done for a while. I'll talk a little bit later on about what I'm aiming to do, but plans change, don't they? Excuse me while I have a sip of coffee. The rain is pounding down again. Okay, so tick off that. My other finished item, and I did have it ready on the table and it's been lost already, is a baby hat, which I knit on DPNs, the DPNs that Andrew and I made. So instead of using magic loop, I tried using the DPNs. So I've got them in a little pack here, the DPNs that we made. And it's, let's see, I'll put the name at the bottom. It's a free Ravelry download from Mama's Stitchery Projects Basic Baby Hat. As I said, knitting the round using 4mm needles, and I used these plastic DPNs that were long needles. If you've seen the previous video, came from my late mother's stash, my late mother's collection of needles. She was a fab knitter and sewer, and Andrew and I cut them down to make a set of 4mm DPN, because I didn't have any 4mm bamboo or whatever I have in my collection. So they are useful. That's the baby hat, which to me, it looks a bit larger than the normal ones I've made. I just steam blocked it because it's acrylic, again from my stash, and I just put a hot steam iron just over it to give it a little bit of shape. What else is there to say? It's going to go in this pack. So there's a hat, a cardigan, and the little baby blanket that I talked about last week. And they will go to a knitting group in our village that collects them and takes them to a local maternity hospital. And they're distributed to new parents that may not have much in the way of a baby collection of stuff, somebody who needs them. And it's all knit from my stash, which is slowly going down, but there's plenty more of this acrylic yarn to go. I may be getting on to darker colours, we'll see, but there's plenty more of the acrylic type yarn, double knit, to use. I will cast on another one of these, but my aims over the next week or so, we'll see how I get on. I like to, when I get up in the morning, have my breakfast, and then sit and do a little bit of knitting. I'm retired. My time is my own. So I don't have to rush out in the morning as I did in the past. So have my breakfast and do a little bit of knitting, and perhaps in the evening do a bit of knitting. And I tend to save sewing for the day, knitting for the evening, and a couple of rows in the morning while I'm having a cup of tea after my breakfast. So that's another finished item, which don't think there's much more to say on that. So of course, I've lost the pencil, but here we go. I found it again. And it's been, that little hat has been stored in my rice bag, and I've really used this loads. Got some little stitch markers. This is how I do my patterns, because it's a very easy downloaded pattern. Mama's Stitchery basic baby hat, and I've just put the pattern in here because it's just on my phone. I haven't downloaded a copy of this, so I just write it in this little book that I make out of envelopes that come through the post. Just cut them up, staple them together, and then I find that's small enough to go in my bag. And there's 2 baby hat patterns in here now, because I made one and then I give my notations for the second one. I write everything down when I'm knitting, because I will totally lose track. Some people, I suppose, can recognise where they are. I'm not one of those. I write everything down. So I have a little bit of white left. I think there was some lemon. I might have already put that away. So that's in my little rice bag, which my granddaughter still does this with, putting over her shoulder as a, I think, I don't know, as a cape or, anyway. So that's done, and put that to one side and tick that off. So what I'm going to talk about now are the 2 little bits of beading I did, which I think is fairly new to me. I've not done any beading before, but I do have a few boxes. I wouldn't say loads, but I have a few boxes of beads, which I'm going to talk about. And some of these have been rescued from, I think these came from a bag that a friend of mine gave me quite a few years ago now, that had lots of beading on and buttons, and it was a cloth bag, sort of over the shoulder, little pretty hippie type thing, and I think it needed a wash, so I washed it, and I don't know, the colours, the dye bled or whatever, so they use this word, which I think is funny, harvested the beads and the buttons. So they came off a little bag that I had quite a few years ago. These came off a necklace that I bought perhaps end of last year in a charity shop. I was taking our granddaughter to playgroup, and I can't remember what I had on, but I felt a bit plain up here. So we had a little rummage in one of the charity shops, which she likes. She's 3. She was 2 and a bit, 2.5 then. Anyway, and I found this necklace. And again, I'll add some photographs of what it was like. And I did wear it that morning, but it was quite heavy. It was quite a thick, coiled type thing. So I undid this, and there's some of the beads, still more to undo there. And what else have I got in here? These, not sure if they came off that bag I mentioned. Anyway, so I've got a few, oh, and these. I've used these on this necklace, and I know where these came from. These came from my dear late mother's house when we cleared her house. And this was a string, can't remember if it was broken, but I kept those beads as well. So I have a little collection of beads, enough to make a few more necklaces, bracelets, whatever. And what I did buy, so this is all stash, and I have a few more which are more, I don't know, perhaps I'll end up taking something for my granddaughter. Or I do have some ideas of what to do with these, but not this week. So they're essentially the 2 little boxes of beads I've got, all sorted. I love a bit of sorting. So, but I did buy myself this week, and I don't want to damage it. because it is quite flimsy. I did buy this bead design board. Now, I don't think it's totally necessary. It's quite flimsy. It was £5. But it get me going. It did get me motivated, because you can, I don't know if there are beaders watching. This is probably old hat to you, but you can line up your beads and it gives you measurements of how long, and you can place your beads to see what your design is like. Now, I did see some online that were wooden, which I would have preferred, but some of the reviews weren't so good, and I didn't know if they take ages to come, and I wanted to get started. So we took a trip to Hobbycraft. Not sure if it's just a UK thing or a worldwide thing, but I don't think I've really been in a Hobbycraft fully. I might have popped in years ago for something, but this Hobbycraft is in Paisley near Glasgow, and I thought it was fabulous. I thought it was such a good shop. There is a good selection of fabric, I think, at a good price, which I don't need, but there were some nice jerseys with sort of children's patterns. There was some nice denim. So I was pleasantly surprised at the fabric, particularly. I didn't look at the yarn. We were in there quite a while, but I didn't look at the yarn. But I bought this. I also bought this string. And because I'm new to beading, I don't understand the sizes, and because I don't go for detail, I don't look at the millimetre of I didn't look at the millimetre of the cord, but this was too large to go through this necklace. I'm going to take it off and take my glasses off and chat about the construction of this necklace. So what I did, I undid the chunky, and because this was too thick, I used the cord that was holding the chunky necklace together, and I did two strings with the bigger beads off the chunky, and these greeny blue ones and the blue ones. And I did want this shorter style. So I had that much of the chunky cord, and I didn't want to, took a while to undo it. So I then used some of this to make the final piece of cord to go around my neck. And then I called in Andrew, my partner. He's a climber, and he actually did the knot. He didn't, well, I didn't ask him to show me. He probably wanted me to learn, but I thought, no, you do it. And it's called double fisherman's knot. Again, I don't know if that's going to go in focus. If there are beaders watching, this is probably old hat to you, but it's new to me. So I'm pleased with that as a bluey, because blue is often my go-to colour. So I'm pleased with that, and using up beads that have been hanging around. My extra purchase was the mat, but I was thinking you could use a piece of velvet, and I do have some velvet in this drawer here. So I could have tried velvet to stop the beads rolling around, but I treated myself to the board. And what else would I like to say? Was going to say something else. Anyway, I'll add some photos of the process. The other one I made is on this table somewhere, is this out of seed beads, which I suppose would again suit what I've got on, something plain. Now, when I was a teenager, no, was I a teenager? Yes, at the start of the 70s, mid-70s, we called these love beads. I don't know if they were called anything different elsewhere. And you'd have a really long string and you could tie it round twice. I didn't have enough of these for that. So it's just once, but it looks quite nice on a plain top. Now there is a clasp on this because it only just comes over my head. And if I pull it too much, the clasp might come loose. I had to use, now let me think what they're called, crimps, which I bought quite a few years ago. I have a little box here of the tools. So the crimps are in here somewhere. So I did have some crimps and I did have some links and jump rings and things, which I was able to use. I may put a little bit of glue on the wire. Again, I had those because I bought that a few years ago, and I did make a couple of bracelets, but not much. So I had a lot of these supplies. And doing this, and with this one, trying to get the knots near the beads was quite difficult. So I put a bead on and then do a knot either side. You can just about make it out. So bead, knot, bead, knot, bead, knot. And to get the knots really near the beads was quite tricky. So again, Andrew to the rescue. He came up with this tool, which, ooh, is really sharp. And it's used for making flies, for fly fishing or fishing, whatever. So this device does make getting the knot nearer to the bead much easier. And it's useful for undoing this, because this is knotted as well. So I'm not sure if there's a beading equivalent of this tool, but Andrew says it's for making fly tying or tying flies. So that came in useful. And I do have a crimping pliers, which again I bought quite a few years ago and it hasn't had much use, and some other pliers which have come from around the house. We have loads of tools and stuff, and this one came as part of a set quite a few years ago. So I have quite a few bits and bobs. I'm not saying I'm going to make any more beading this week, but they're there when I want to do some different colours. Now I'm going to try and undo this one so I can put the other one back on. I may have to give up, we'll see. No, done. I'm going to put this one back on because this is the one I like best. So that's my beading. Anything else I need to say? Oh, I do have a book, which again I bought a few years ago, a beading companion, which gives you some ideas and some tips. And I did watch somebody on YouTube who made a kumihimo bracelet using beads, and that was really stunning. So I'll talk about kumihimo next week, because I don't know where I've put it now, but it's a way of doing making strings. Yeah, let's leave it at that for now. So I did, and she had made lovely pendants out of beads and wire. But as I keep saying, I'm not particularly artistic, but I got loads of this wire reclaimed from, electric motors. Anyway, I digress. I'm going on. So I'm not sure I'll do any beading this week, but I'm pleased with what I've made. So that's my beading. The last thing I want to talk about is the Primmy Chorley book I mentioned last week. I went to a Jessie Chorley embroidery exhibition. Well, this is Jessie's mum, Primmy, who lives in North Wales. And I went with the same friend. Must have been in around about lockdown. I don't know if the date is on here. To a Primmy Chorley exhibition in Ruthin. And it was wonderful. So this is Primmy Chorley's work. Her work, I think, is more 3D, but stunning. Just this image of a woman with a dog. I found it so moving, wonderful. But I don't think there's much of her online. Really, really beautiful textile work, honestly. And I'm glad I've got this book out because I haven't looked at it for a while, but I find them so moving. They're wonderful. Just find one more. But I think they're incredible. So Primmy Chorley, I don't think she has much of a presence online, but absolutely stunning as an exhibition. And that was quite a few years ago. Just see if the date is on here. This was the catalogue to go with the exhibition at Ruthin. Look at that. They're just wonderful. Forward. No, can't see the date. Anyway, I thought I'd show that because I did mention it last week. So that's it for today. And sometimes it's very difficult to be positive with all the terrible things going on, isn't it, in the world? Awful. We are so privileged. I am so privileged and so thankful for our life chances. Right, this week I'm going to try and get a grip on my mending. And I did start a red quilt and I'm going to try and go back to that. So they are my plans for this week: mending and perhaps going back to this the red quilt. I think that's everything from me. Thank you so much for your company. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and see you again soon. Happy stitching. Bye.